This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good day. We are ready to discuss the fallout from last night's game, a 7-2 loss to the Carolina Hurricanes. Of course, we already discussed that with Jack Campbell and all that. But now I think is the time of season where Oilers fans love to start solving other teams' problems with our problems. What do I mean by that? Well, you saw yesterday potentially on YouTube here of Lego Rocks 99 there talking about, of course, yeah, potentially Jack Campbell going back to the Toronto Maple Leafs to solve their goaltending issue, despite him being a huge issue in net for the Oilers currently. You kind of get where I'm going with that one. But now today as well, and I'm going to throw my own theory out there as well. Ryan Murray is a name that I think when the Pittsburgh Penguins were down to 3 defensemen there a couple of days ago, I had thrown out to a couple of people saying, hey, you could trade him back to the Penguins there for some increased value because the Penguins are in a hard spot. But, my friends, instead, it is today the Columbus Blue Jackets who find themselves in a hard spot with Zach Werenski going out for the season due to a shoulder injury that'll keep him out. So there you go. All of a sudden, things adding up. And I just wanted to get out in front of this Ryan Murray one because I think this is a very interesting kind of situation for the Oilers if we really want to boil it down. Folks, before we do that, if you're new to the channel, what I want you to do is consider hitting that subscribe button in the next 5-10 minutes. Take your time. Figure out if you want to stick around here on the channel and discuss all things Oilers with us, and away we go. Alright, so Jack Campbell, obviously, I think it's a natural thing to want to push him back to the Toronto Maple Leafs, because of their injury issues in net, Matt Murray not being a steady Eddie kind of player right now with the injury kind of situation he's had for the past 3 years or so, as it seems. Secondary to that, their backup's injured. Colgren, their third string, is starting games. And B, you look at what kind of situation Jack Campbell's in here in Edmonton, where things have turned sour very quickly, almost right out of the gate, in fact, for Jack Campbell. And now all of a sudden, right, is he going to right the ship in Edmonton? Probably not. He's got to sit on the bench in everyone's best estimation for the next 3-4 games here, as Stuart Skinner needs to take the bulk of the starts and allow Dustin Schwartz to work with Jack Campbell and try and get him back into some kind of regular goaltending shape, because I mean, one good game every 5 games is not going to help you out. And yes, you can say he's won a lot of games for the Oilers this season, but the Oilers have won him a lot of games in that aspect too. So that's where I think it's a very natural push to want to send him back to the Leafs, because that's where he came from. Secondary to that, it's not like the Leafs weren't that far away from signing him to $5 million. I think the number was 4.5 versus 5 mil. He could get 5 mil in Edmonton versus 4.5 in Toronto, if I remember the offseason correctly. And secondary to that too is for Jack Campbell. It's not like a place he doesn't know and a place he hasn't had success. And for the Leafs too, that's an interesting situation to try and solve. So Jack Campbell would be part of that solution, as I mean, Keith Petruzzelli is now the backup for the Toronto Maple Leafs at current, and he was just signed to a contract like 3 days ago. So, right, it's not too comfortable if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs over there in the Atlantic Division right now. And for the Leafs too, projected LTIR used, right, they're pretty much right up against the cap right now. Usage remaining, I guess they've got $5 million in LTIR cap, actually, if you look at the numbers. So that's where it could get interesting. But if the Leafs are to move someone in like Jack Campbell at $5 million, they'll be wanting to move someone out. And for the Oilers, right, you got to look at kind of the situation you'd find yourself in. You'd be talking in the range Alex Kerfoot, Pierre Engvall, Kelly Yarncroke. You'd be talking about guys like that in those $2 to $3.5 million range. If you're trying to take salary back on the Leafs back end, there's really not anyone you can take back. I guess we might get stuck with Justin Holl, who not a lot of Leafs fans have anything good to say about right now. But you look at it up and down the Leafs lineup, there really is not a lot of guys that you can dollars in, dollars out and make this trade work back, sending Jack Campbell back to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that's where it gets really interesting really quick, right? Is I don't think for the Oilers and Leafs there's really anything to Jack Campbell to the Leafs, but it is one of those things that does in a world kind of make sense because of the situation. Now all of a sudden you talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, who will now have a ton of LTIR cap space, and I guess too they've had some goaltending issues with Elvis Merzlikins and Jonas Korpisalo being the backup. Potentially, would you see a swap for Merzlikins and Campbell in there? I don't know. I mean, Columbus is actually clearing cap. In that trade, do you then send Ryan Murray and try to figure something out? Because as it sits, the Columbus Blue Jackets have Eric Gudbranson, Vladislav Gavrikov, Jake Bean, Nick Blankenberg, and Andrew Peeke as their current NHL defensemen, with Werenski going on the LTIR. And second to this, anything else, right? In the minors, yeah, they've got Juracek, Denton Matichuk. They've got a whole ton of guys that are going to be useful for them at some point, but you kind of also look at the emergency recalls they made. There's not a ton of great depth there for them in terms of guys that have played in the NHL this season consistently, and Ryan Murray is one of those guys. Currently, the Blue Jackets see themselves with $1.4 million in cap space. Obviously, they're going to pull up, and that's what they did to get Zach Werenski on the LTIR. So that's one of those things, right? Is there's a million and one ways you can kind of put the pieces, but I just wanted to discuss both Ryan Murray and Jack Campbell, because I think both Oilers fans would love to throw Campbell back to Toronto, throw Ryan Murray back to Columbus. He's had one redeeming play all season, most people would say, and simply just solve our problems by giving our problems to someone else. And the reason I bring this discussion up, if you're wondering where this was really going at the end of the day, is it is so in our nature to say, we've got a problem, let's make it somebody else's problem. And, right, we just, hey, somebody else's problem and get no value back for it, right? How many people were so upset with Strome back in 18-19 and just, hey, oh man, he's such a problem, and then we're insanely upset when we got Ryan Spooner back for him? Simply because, well, okay, I mean, the guy's got amazing value, but you're literally saying every second day that the guy is just a complete issue in your lineup, and somehow, some way, you get a terrible return and you're upset. So I guess the question here is really both teams, whether you want to talk about the Blue Jackets or whether you want to talk about the Leafs, don't really have something to give back to the Oilers that would be a value that changes the lineup any different than it is now, right? You trade Campbell to Toronto, and now you've got Stuart Skinner as your starter and Andrew Fanti as your backup. I don't know anyone that really in Oilers land knows the name Fanti too well right now. Even I don't too much. So I guess we got Calvin Pickard. I guess if you want to mess around and have fun with that, we could. But that's kind of the point of this video, is just to look at it of, sure, there's ways you can solve other teams' problems by giving them our trash or noted trash, whatever you want to say, but it really, at the end of the day, is all just a pipe dream that doesn't solve anything. The answer has got to be in the locker room here with the Oilers. The answer's got to be, we got to get better out there, we got to lock it down, and we got to find ways to win games that we shouldn't be winning, i.e. last night. Folks, I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. Thanks so much for tuning in this afternoon, I guess you could say. I am up on out of here.